Hi everybody and welcome Mark. Welcome to another issue. We've been off for a couple of weeks, huh?
We have indeed, but at least you've been calling them in your Money Man column. Very bullish last week you were, and they came good, the Bulls. I think the bookies got a bit spooked by that Chiefs result against the Bulls at Loftus, and then gave the Sharks favourites to win. They hadn't won in 8 games, 7 defeats and a draw, and took the last 5 minutes, but they came through. So, well, good call there.
Thanks Mark. I think we've got another very tough week ahead of us. We got the Highlanders versus the Hurricanes. Hurricanes favoured by 2.5 points. Few All Blacks, few injury concerns. Highlanders team that haven't played much rugby recently, and both teams have really struggled to find consistent form, I think.
Yeah, but I fancy the Highlanders at home. If this was in Wellington, I would say comfortable win for the Hurricanes. Highlanders at home, I think they'll win it.
No, they played earlier this year, didn't they? 25-22 for the Hurricanes in Wellington. Yeah. So I'd have to agree with you. I think, for me, I can't pick it. So I just gonna, on my Super Brew, pick the Highlanders by 1 point. And I think they may sneak a win, but I wouldn't bet on that game.
Highlanders by 5.
Oh, nice. Then we got the Reds versus the Stormers. Stormers favoured by 1.5. But then you look at all I think there's more Stormers players returning to Cape Town this week than are in Queensland. A tough game again to call.
Yeah, very difficult game. And the Reds are also a very difficult team to call at the moment. Just when you write them off, they produce a good performance. Then when you think we're quite favourites to do well, they get blown away. I thought the Rebels really smashed them too convincingly. But I think the Stormers will win this one, despite having the likes of Peter Steff and Earban out. There's a lot of good depth in that pack, and hopefully we can see someone like Damian Willemse get some ball and create some magic. He's the best back they've got. I just wish they'd play him at 10.
Well, I think by default Robbie Fleck might pox a win this week because he's had to play these players. And you know, when I look at the games that the young brigade have played, and they've looked good. You know, it amazes me that he hasn't been using some of these players.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at someone like Swayze de Bruin, who really, after the Lions struggled initially, he said, I'm going to invest in these kids, 7 or 8 of them. They've come good for him so far. They're playing with a lot more enthusiasm, rejuvenated, post that shocking performance that the oldies gave in Cape Town against the Stormers. And that is the future, invest in them, you know, and I think you'll see a bit more energy. And it's normally a place that the Stormers also like to go to. They like to be in Brisbane.
Yeah, who doesn't?
Yeah, you know, and there's, as you said, we chatted a while ago, Brad Thorne's brought some good structure and discipline to the Reds. But
they've been there or thereabouts, I think, and they haven't been blown out of too many games. I know they lost last week to the Rebels by 20 plus, but there were some late scores there that...
Yeah, I just think that they just don't have the quality of play in their 23.
No quality whatsoever.
And you know, if they lose 1 or 2 of their kind of more established players, they do tend to struggle. And they're very poor crowd support there when I watched last week's game as well. So I think Stormers will get it, but
they must have been all at the netball game.
Yeah, not because of, in spite of.
You know, I think the Stormers may pox a win here. I'm going to go Stormers by 4. And then we move on to the Sharks versus Lions. Got 3 games on Friday. Haven't seen that for a while. Haven't seen a Friday night game in Cape Town. The last one I think was the Stormers versus the Jaguars.
Yeah, and I think about 12 people pitched up for that. Yeah. So be a bit better crowd attendance at Ellis Park. But again, another tough one to call. If you look at that South African conference, which is inclusive obviously of the Jaguars, there's a win between being bottom and being top at the moment. You know, it's played 6-1-3 kind of thing, gets you to the top. And very little to choose between the South African teams. I was amazed at how easily the Bulls blew away the Lions in Johannesburg. But they seemed to recover after that. Then again, how the Bulls got blown away, you know, by the Chiefs, and then recovered and went down to Durban and won with a whisker. But in the preceding match at Loftus, they won very comfortably. I think this one's going to be very tight. Huh?
Yeah, I do too. And that's why the Sharks getting 7.5 points. Plus 7.5 on the handicap. I like the Sharks to cover that and not lose by 8 or more. They may well win this game. It's again another close call. I'm going to put 2,500 Rand down to win 3
3,800.
No, that's 2. To win 4,250.
Nice. Is that your bet of the weekend?
That's my bet of the weekend. Sharks plus 7.5. Like I say, it'll be a close game. Not the game that Rassie Erasmus will be looking forward to watching, because these derbies and the physical encounters, not what you want in the build up to a World Cup.
No, I think he'll be quite comfortable that the likes of Peter, Steph and Eben are at home at the moment. And I think the ideal for him is for his top players to kind of get that 4 weeks out or 5 weeks out with an injury and kind of protect them a bit and let them be kind of peaking towards that World Cup and not even in the Rugby Championship, because the attrition rate is intense. You look at a lot of discussion in New Zealand at the moment with their 5, no players allowed to play more than 5. Then he's got to be rested and they've got to miss 2 games. That's excluding the 2 bye weekends that the teams have. And a guy like Keohane is playing his 7th successive game. And Leo McDonald says he's in form, he just wants to play and has to keep on playing them. So there's a lot of discussion that's going on there, because the ruling wasn't documented and formalized. It's very much a All Black coaching and regional coaching handshake and agreement. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting how certain players are being managed and the workload that others have. I mean, Sia Khaleesi hasn't missed a minute. And again, he can't keep on being played. He is the Springbok captain.
Neither does his wife on social media, apparently.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. Has she closed the account yet or opened another 5?
I think she's opened another one. Shame, man.
Yeah, so yeah, like you said, Rassie doesn't want those. I think he wants to get these derbies out the way, because it is, mate against mate, they hold nothing back, and it's going to be
as we saw with Brits and
with Brits and Ucker.
Can you believe that? Quickly, I know we're digressing, but 4-game ban.
Yeah, I mean, I was initially kind of outraged that Brits was even sent off. I mean, he was on. They say he made contact, but it was like with his fingers, basically. He couldn't. He was pinned down. So I thought it was
in Wales we call that handbags at 10 paces.
I mean, I thought it was a very cowardly headbutt from Ucker, and then he had him pinned, and then this handbag scuffle broke out. Ucker, for me, they're leading with a head malice. The ball was nowhere near Brits. He should have been sent red card. He pleaded guilty straight away, so his 6 weeks ban was reduced to 3. Brits refused to plead guilty, so he got the maximum 4, being found guilty, because they said it was an act of self-defense. But because he has 2 previous convictions over a decade, he couldn't get the 2-week thing. So,
well, this is what happens when we have school teachers running rugby.
But I do find if you take the malice that there was in the way Ucker went for him, it was a personal thing. He gets 3 weeks, and then you take the Blues winner. Yes, clumsy and sloppy in terms of the challenge on Dylan Lates, but no malice in it, and he gets 4 weeks. So, and the one thing you want to take out of the game is thuggery. And I just thought Ucker van der Merwe's moment of madness was a thuggish act and a cowardly act. Anyone who leads into a bloke whose arms are pinned, he's defenseless, and you lead him with a head, that's just a no-go in any contact sport.
I agree, fully agree. Moving swiftly on, the Brumbies are playing, who do we call them?
Canterbury, the Greater Canterbury, I'd call them, yeah. Formerly known as the Crusaders.
I believe you've got an article coming out tomorrow. We'll discuss that on a podcast later about the name change, creating huge controversy in New Zealand, and even as far as here. I think I saw a poll on SA Rugby yesterday where people were asked, not that they should really have that strong an opinion, should the Crusaders change their name? 90% of the people, and I imagine we have a huge Muslim community in South Africa. A lot of those people would have voted on that, and we'll get into that later. But I mean, that's an interesting topic, the name change.
It is, and I think because I mean the Crusaders 9 times champions, and one of the more revered teams, and very popular in South Africa, very popular in Cape Town, and a popular team in Europe. And then obviously because of the Muslim attacks, Christchurch, it is a global discussion point when it comes to sport and rugby and kind of what's going on. So yeah, we'll get into it in the podcast, but I have my views, and they're pretty much as emphatic as I think what's going to happen on Saturday when the Brumbies was.
Yeah, I think the Crusaders are 20-point favourites, and I think they could well put up 30. I think the emotionality of that situation is sort of is levelling off. And we saw a strong performance from them last week. And the Brumbies haven't won there in 19 years. They're missing Pocock. I can see a biblical beating. I've got them in my Super Rugby at 30 points plus.
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised at how easily the Reds hammered them at the Bruce Stadium in Canberra. they're just not a good side anymore. You know, I think a lot of times we tend to give the Brumbies
a bit of reputational.
And like you said, it's a reputation that's come from about 15 years ago when George Gregan and Stephen Larkin were playing, and Joe Roth. You know, that golden era. They're not a good side at the moment, and so I've also got them to take a beating.
Yeah, no, me too. 30 plus for me. Blues versus Waratahs. Blues going for a 4th straight win. Bookies have them favoured by 7.5.
I know, you know, Michael Hooper's been rested, and I think that takes a lot out of it. I don't know. I would never put anything on the Blues.
Any expectation?
Any expectation. I mean, I was, you know, I just felt like they won with 25-30% of the ball against the Stormers. I looked at that game and I don't know how the Stormers actually lost that game. They had all the possession, they had all the field position to not even get over for a try. They created opportunities. So that one did surprise me. And the bookies also had the Blues at fairly decent favourites for that one. Yeah. I thought they would have got it wrong. But Waratahs Blues always traditionally a tough game, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Waratahs win.
Yeah, well, I would be, but I'm going to stay away from that one. 7.5 is enough to scare me away from the Blues covering that. Then we have the Rebels versus the New Zealand Presidents 15.
Yep.
Otherwise known as the Sunwolves.
Exactly. And
Rebels favoured by 13.5.
Yeah, I think that's very generous, because the Sunwolves, I mean, Jamie Joseph and Tony Brown have got them playing like a half-decent New Zealand regional side.
Well, and they've got that metronomic kicker.
Hayden Parker, 27 from 27 at the moment. And some of them have been like, you can't get more difficult kicks.
No, I know.
It's like right in the corners, both sides. He's a bloody good kicker. I think he played for the Highlanders a couple of years ago. But it'd be nice to see if there's a handful of Japanese players in this side for this weekend.
It'd be nice to see a couple.
Just a couple, yeah. So it's a combination of New Zealand, South Africa, and the odd Aussie that they throw in, obviously with a lot of Pacific Islanders. But they've been competitive, you know. Yeah. And I mean, that was a stunning result against the Waratahs. They were out of it. Waratahs scored within 90 seconds. You thought, oh, this is going to be a 30-point blowout, and for them to come back, the winner got 3 tries, 31-30. So they've won in Australia. They've won in New Zealand. The one place they haven't won is South Africa. And
the reward for that is to be kicked in the touch.
Yeah,
so.
And I think you're also getting this kind of a bit of defiance now from the expats, because they know they're not playing for anything Japanese. They're just out there to play for new contracts next year, be it in Europe or in one of the New Zealand franchises. Yeah.
So well, Parker for me would be a great signing for any franchise.
No, he was always a good player when he was down at the Highlanders, and I think one of those guys that went there with the potential to play for Japan when he went over to play in Japan. But good player. Yeah, I think it's generous, eh? The Rebels with that.
Yeah, again, I won't touch it. I mean, who can call it? I'm not going to. Bulls, Jaguars. Bulls favoured by 8.5. Resting so many players through Springbok protocol. Completely different look. But the Jaguars have flattered to deceive.
Yeah, you never know what they're going to bring either. You know, like I think we spoke a couple of weeks ago when we were surprised that they lost at home to the Lions. Then they came back here and they kind of changed 11 players, played their second stringers.
Yeah, because the Lions got absolutely mullered by the Bulls after that game. So I mean, that's.
And then they came down to Cape Town and the Stormers destroyed them. Then they played their full strength side. So on the road they haven't been very good. But no Jesse Creel, no Andre Pollard, no Skulk Brits. Again, it wouldn't surprise me. I think they're going to cover the spread, but it wouldn't surprise me if they could pox a win against the Bulls. Yeah.
Now for me, I think I've taken the Bulls on my Super Brew by 5, but without much confidence. The bet for me is the Sharks. Really going to get stuck into that one, and may offer some in-trading, in-running advice around total points. And interesting, you know that bet that I used to make, the penalty tries versus penalties converted or versus tries. Haven't seen that bet offered by WSB since we started winning on that. Interesting, eh?
Very interesting.
No, not in the habit of giving away money, old WSB. But that said, should be an interesting week of rugby, and hopefully the Sharks will cover the spread with the Lions.
Fantastic.
Thanks, Mark.